One of the techniques often used as part of continual service improvement and other quality management projects is called root cause analysis, regression analysis. So this is a technique, regression analysis, which talks about the relationship between values of different measurements. So it's all about correlation. So regression analysis talks about correlation, and correlation doesn't necessarily have to be a positive correlation. It can also be a negative correlation. So where correlation could be positive or negative, it doesn't necessarily mean cause and effect. So there's a correlation between two items, but one doesn't necessarily mean that the other will always happen. It can be coincidental. So you have to look at coincidences as well as deliberate cause and effects. Okay, so how do you use regression analysis? So first of all, number one, plan. So it's the same thing as always, plan, do, check, act. So plan your data collection. Plan data collection. So that's step one. So what is the input that you're going to use? What are the potential causes? So can you make any predictions at this stage? So it's really all about planning. Then step two, you need to do a performance analysis. Performance analysis. And that basically means that the data that you've collected, you need to do an analysis on the performance of that data. And then based on your analysis, you need to eliminate. Because remember how I said earlier that a correlation, be it a positive or a negative correlation, doesn't necessarily mean cause and effect. It could also be coincidental. So we need to eliminate unimportant variables. So the stuff that we know at this point in time is not important. It's data that could actually soil the set or make it less valuable. So be ruthless, eliminate all the unimportant variables. And then step 4, can you still see that? Step 4, select and refine. Because ultimately you want to end up with 2 or 3 factors within the model. So you don't want to have too many variables, because it's very difficult to come up with a regression analysis if you have too many variables. So then basically you can verify your model using new data and see if your elimination was correct, and see if the selection of data and performance of the data is correct. So these are the steps. So it's 4, maybe 5 steps if you add in the new data as well. So those are your steps. So plan your data collection, do a performance analysis of your data, the data that you have collected, then eliminate any variables that are out of the equation, and then select and refine. Then based on the model that you've created, based on this model, you can now create regression equations, and that's where your mathematical skills come into play. Linear equation would be the output, a single output, y is b0 plus b1 times x, depending on how many you have, plus e. Okay, so what does that mean? We have b0, that's the average minimum value of the output, so the lowest value. So that's your average minimum value. b1 is a constant, so that's a constant. depending on the set you've created. So that's to define how much impact this X has on the output. So that's basically a decision you have to make based on the performance analysis you've done as part of your data gathering. If X times B1 is a positive, obviously the outcome is positive. If X times B1 is a negative, the output, the impact is negative. And then E is the amount of uncertainty. So I just make that a question mark. So that's basically how uncertain you are. So what's the rate of error you think is part of your model, or the amount of noise. Remember how I said earlier, the unintentional effects or the unwanted variables. So that's the amount of noise that you take into account in your equation. So the output is your average minimum value times your constant plus any number of uncertainty that that you want to take into effect. So that's your linear equation of regression. So that's to identify what the results will be, or what the results could be, of your continual improvement project, and whether or not it's going to have a positive effect or whether it's going to have a negative effect. And depending on what you want to achieve, positive or negative could actually be good. So it all depends on what you need to achieve. So hopefully this has given you some food for thought on how to use regression analysis as part of your continual improvement programs.